Hi, today we're going to learn about something called intervals. An interval is basically the distance between two notes. Now, why in the world do we need to understand distances between two notes? Well, let me just give you a real quick explanation as to why it's important that as a musician, you understand what intervals are and why they're important. So first of all, we want to learn the sound of intervals because the sound of intervals helps us when we're playing by ear. Have you ever, been trying to play a song and you started out and, ooh, I guessed right, or maybe you played two notes one after the other and it reminded you of a song. Whoops. And that's because you heard that sound and you recognized that it has a certain sound and it sounded like a song to you. And so then you kind of went off from there. Now, as you get better at understanding intervals and have more practice using your ears to decipher those very specific sounds, you'll get quicker at making choices when you're playing by ear. So that's definitely a plus about learning how the sound of intervals go. You probably already know one specific interval. It's really famous. It's called an octave. So if you've ever heard of an octave, that's an interval. And we named that interval by the distance between two notes. You hear the word oct or the prefix oct in there. Oct means 8, right? Just like an octagon or an octopus, right? An octave is 8 notes and it sounds like this. My piano is a little bit out of tune, but you get the idea. So when you hear that sound, you can start to understand, oh, I just heard an octave. And that can help, your musical brain to understand better. Intervals actually have two functions. The first function is a melodic interval, or you hear the word melody in there. I once heard a teacher say, melodic intervals go in this direction, kind of like an M, right? So that's how you can know it. If you could sing it one note after another, it sounds like a melody or a tune. Therefore, it's a melodic interval. And when I just played that octave for you, that's a melodic octave. So like somewhere over the rainbow, right? That's an octave, and we kind of hear that song, hear that song as a reminder of what the octave sounds like. Now, we can also have intervals in harmony, and this is where it's important to know what sounds good together, because some intervals are pleasing to the ear, like maybe this one. That was a melodic, and now I'm going to play them together. And there's the harmonic interval. Doesn't that sound nice? Yeah? Now, some intervals do not sound pleasing together. They sound more unstable or sometimes yucky. Yeah, you don't want to have too many of those kinds of intervals in your song, right? So if you know what intervals are pleasing, or the technical word for that is consonant sounding, then you know what you want to use more in your music. Those dissonances is the word for the yucky, unstable ones like this, they can be used, you just don't want to use them all the time. There's a chord that uses that interval. You recognize that? It's a 5/7 chord. So it uses that instability to take us back to here. But that's getting off topic, so I'll try to stay on the topic at hand. So this is why we want to listen for the sounds of intervals, and I'm going to actually teach you in a different video some songs that go along with each of the intervals. The other thing is that as you're learning to read music, reading intervals will help you a whole bunch. So let me just grab my letter cards here because I want to show you what I mean. So when you're first learning how to, well, not even to read, but when you're a little kid, your mom and dad start saying, oh, this is a letter C, right? And they show you what a C is, and then they start pointing them out all over the place on signs and things like that. What letter is that? What letter is that? Until you know that that is a letter C, and that's what that letter looks like, right? And eventually you get really good at identifying Cs. Well, we are working on that in our music, aren't we? We're working on looking at the staff and noticing when the note is on when the note is on a staff line or space and what that means to where you need to play it on the piano, right? At first I say, okay, this is a C, and then you go to school and your teacher says, this is a C, and I know you know that, but the C has a sound, and the C sounds like this, k or s. Right? It makes sounds. So when we see that letter, when we start to read, we start to understand, oh, that letter makes an actual sound. And that's what happens on the keys as well in music. Then when we start to, of course, we learn other letters, you know, like A, right? So we recognize the letter first, then we recognize and start to understand it makes a sound, A, ah. I'm so good at my phonograms, aren't I? And maybe this one too, right? And we see that. So when we're first learning to read, you know, we don't understand how the letters all fit together. We just know the letters, and we might know that they make sounds, but let's see if I can even do this. Eventually, you get so good at reading or seeing the letters together that you don't look at that and say C-A-T. You look at that and bam, right off the bat, you say, that word is cat. And that's what we want to do with intervals. Right now we've been working on that's a C, that's an E, that's a D, that's a G, or whatever it is. But now we're going to start to see two letters next to each other, two notes next to each other, and we're going to go bam, that's a fifth. Bam, that's an octave. Bam, that's a second. And I'm going to teach you how to do that, all right? But it's going to help you to play the music better if you can recognize those intervals. So, are you ready? We're going to get started.